Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to School of Physics. Here today I will discuss a new topic which is regarding the forces. I will write it down first. The fundamental forces of nature. Fundamental forces of nature. So in this regard, I will discuss what kind of forces are there on the primary level, which are existing inside the universe, which are governing our universe. Right now, as of now, we know about the physics, developments in the physics, and we have up to now we have concluded that there are four major forces which are fundamental in nature, which are understood to some extent or a greater extent. So what exactly is fundamental? What does fundamental mean? Fundamental means the basic, that is, which is, we can say, the thing, anything which is the primary source, that means anything which is the primary source of all other things. That very thing is called as the fundamental, whether that may be force or whether that may be some other aspect of physics or other subject. That is called as the fundamental. That is the thing which can't be further divided. That is the basic component of that very aspect. That's called as the fundamental. For example, you will get an idea about it in a while. First, before that, I will discuss what is force. I will give a simple definition, a short definition about force. You will always recall that. You have to remember this very force. We generally speak about the force as push or pull, but that's not all there it is. No, there is something beyond that, because for example, you are able to watch right now your video on your smartphone, PC, whatever it is, on the TV. So there is something happening inside your smartphone. The rays comes out, strike your eyes, and you are able to, and your mind perceives it, and you are able to get the image or video in your mind that this stuff is going on. But from mobile phone to your eyes, what exactly happens? There isn't any push, there isn't any pull, but still then a force is acting behind that. A force is working over onto that very phenomena, which is making you to feel that you are observing something, you are seeing something. So for that, I will give a simpler definition. An agent, or you can say any agent, an agent which causes a change in the universe. I told you earlier, this universe is very much important. So that's why the title of my channel is also School of Physics, Understand Universe, because the basic module here is to understand our universe. An agent which causes a change in the universe, that is the force. That agent, this very agent which causes a change in the universe, maybe it may be part of universe, part or as a whole, part of universe. Okay, so an agent which causes a change in the universe or in the system, we can say for short, that is the agent which is called as the force. That agent is called as the force. For example, your pen is here it has some position at some time, but as the time passes, it is shifted towards this very position now. Unless and until there isn't any force acting over onto this pen, it is not possible that it can change its position. Since I have applied a force on it, so that's why its position has been changed. So there is a change in the state. State of the position is what? State of the pen is what? First it was on this place, onto this place, and then on applying force, it got changed its position. Okay, so there is a change, and the change is caused by some external agency, and that agency is force, which in this case my hand is applying force onto this pen. Another example. For example, here I am having this pen lifted in the air. I am dropping it. I am not applying any force over onto it, but this still drops down because there is some agent which is causing change its height from H to 0 position, the ground level. And that very agent here, in case of this, is gravity. That's the gravitational force of the earth. So here the agent is gravitational force, and that's also force. So that means it's not only the push or pull. You can make a generalization of this very statement like this: an agent which causes a change inside the universe, in the universe, that very agent is called as the force. So there can be different types of forces. We use in our day-to-day life various kinds of forces, like we use in our common language that it's frictional force. If we have water and honey in 2 glasses, we drop down. We say one has got more viscosity, another have got less viscosity. That means the viscous force acting on honey is more than that of the water. That's another force, the viscous force. Another thing you observe when you are inside the water and dropping something inside the water, you feel that its weight is lesser. When you get it out of the water, its weight increases. So there is some kind of weight downwards, but inside the water there is some kind of force which is acting upwards, which is making the weight lesser inside the water as compared to outside the water. So that very force, which is called as the buoyant force. Another force we use in simple languages, which is inside the human body, our muscles, which is called the muscular forces. So we, in our common language, these are not the fundamental. I have already told you. Fundamental is that very thing which is primary source for anything. Anything which is primary source, that is the fundamental. Okay. So in this regard, but in our day-to-day life, we use various terms for forces, like we have muscular forces, we have spring forces, which I have not discussed yet. Spring force, for example, we have a spring. If we compress it, we feel like we are the spring is exerting some kind of force onto our hands, and that force is called as the spring force. Another, as I told you, the buoyant force. The buoyant force. Many other forces. I will discuss here few, like the frictional force, the contact force, which is, for example, the contact between two particles, the contact between two things, we can say. So there are various kinds of forces, but these are not the fundamental ones. So I told you that these are not the fundamental forces. For example, take the example of spring force. This is a simpler one to understand. The spring force. For example, we have a spring. We are compressing it from this very position x to this very position, x minus some delta x. So we are compressing this spring like this, and when we compress this very spring, we will feel that there is a force exerted from this spring, okay, onto our hands. But that is not the fundamental. The fundamental force which is existing there inside the spring, it is the electromagnetic force. How that is? Electromagnetic force. Look, spring consists of molecules. Say for example steel or iron or carbon, iron and carbon. So this is the composition of a spring, which is spiral in shape onto something. So we will get a spring shape of this very steel rod, okay. But molecules are present inside the spring, and these molecules are itself made up of atoms. And these atoms, when these are present, say for example this is the portion of the spring like this. When we take this very portion, it is made up of atoms, and the adjacent particle to it, it's also made up of atoms. There is an atom, there is an atom, there is an atom. And inside the atom, you know, there are protons inside the nucleus, and around which electrons are revolving. So there arises some kind of strain, which is the force created between these particles, which are charged in nature, charged particle in nature. So the force which arises between the charged particles, this gives rise to the force which is observed on a macroscopic level. I have earlier told you that there is a kind of reductionism which you must be understanding first, because we have reduced this spring, the macroscopic entity, into a microscopic entity based upon the atoms and molecules. So we have reduced, there is a kind of reductionism, there is a kind of reduction. So for that, inside the charged particles, we know the force existing between the particles, it is the electromagnetic force. Electromagnetic. So this force gives rise to what? This spring force. So there is a strain caused inside the spring, which is not caused by spring itself, but it is due to the particles which are present inside, the molecules present inside the spring, which is causing a strain on the macroscopic level. So the spring force has its origin, has its fundamental basis lying inside what? The electromagnetic force. Though we are observing spring force, but the fundamental action is going on the molecular level, on the atomic level, which is caused by electromagnetic force. So the fundamental source of spring is itself what? The electromagnetic force. So electromagnetic force is the origin of spring force. Similarly, muscular force, it is also based upon the chemical reactions taking place inside our body. Inside the body, the chemical reaction taking place inside our body, and the chemical reactions are itself composition. These are the composition of the molecules and atoms, and atoms and molecules are itself made up of electrons and protons, which are charged in nature. So the fundamental force here also existing is also the electromagnetic force. Similarly, in case of other things, you will see either there is gravitational force existing behind that very particular thing, or there is electromagnetic, or in case of nucleus, there are two other things. strong force, strong nuclear force, and another is weak nuclear force. So that means all the forces which are we observing in our day-to-day life, these come under 4 category of the forces, and those 4 forces are fundamental in nature. There is no further reduction in that very thing. That force has no further source. That's itself the primary source. So that's why these are called as the fundamental forces. And there are 4 fundamental forces inside our universe right